Hello, my name is Jennifer Mack Watkins, and I'm here to share with you my paper presentation titled The Influence of Political and Social Events Using the Practice of Makuhanga as a Change Agent or Influence. As a native of Charleston, South Carolina, I am very aware of how my ancestors were bonded into spaces and were unable to be free. As a printmaker, I tried to observe and feel my emotions by using the technique of Makuhanga as a way to use my voice to occupy space in a positive way. The purpose of this paper is to demonstrate how political, social events, history, my own personal experience, and observations of the world have influenced the work in which I create. In my own work, I constantly travel mentally within various time periods in history by researching the lives of people who have gone unnoticed, unheard, overlooked, and targeted. As a recurring issue, it is clear that history is always told only part of the story of what makes a culture. I do believe that it is my duty to use my art as a way to document the past, present, and future. My deep focus on selecting these moments of history, past and present, allows me to use the washy surface as a sense of liberation and freedom that can't be labeled or controlled by aesthetic boundaries when I use each tool. I'm interested in depicting my own identity as a means to disrupt, celebrate, and educate. In my work, I constantly visit the themes of celebration and educating about overlooked people who have contributed to history. Other themes in which I visit in the works in which I create deal with beauty. Beauty is an important part of the work in which I create because my mother was able to have a hair salon for 30 years. In the work I create, I also tend to use my own human experience as a theme in the work in which I create. I am also an art educator, and I also tend to look at history to see how spaces have been used as protection in traumatic events. The work in which I create is not only addressing history or traumatic events or political issues. I also like to think of a way in how I can encourage and motivate youth and the generation of today to utilize knowledge as a way to see themselves as free to imagine the possibilities of what the future can hold. Through my own work, I aim to make people more aware of their histories and the connection art has to document or create a utopian world through printmaking. The inspirations behind my work not only involve referring to my personal observations, but also involve in-depth studies of art movements and how groups of artists came together to create work without boundaries. I am highly attracted to works of art and artists that allow their medium to share or document their thoughts, ideas, observations of the world in which they live. Some of the artists who have deeply influenced the way I think about Makuhanga include the Creative Prints Artists, the Women's Print Association, and the Robert Blackburn Printmaking Workshop. Together, they provide me with insight on the importance of experimentation and breaking the barriers of printmaking by challenging traditional subject matter, techniques, and content as an artist. One of these artists that I greatly admire is the artist named Elder Corder, who was a painter and printmaker who worked and experimented in the Robert Blackburn Print Shop located in New York City around the 1960s. Before I introduce the works of Corder, I would like to share a brief biography. Corder, who was born in 1916, Richmond, Virginia, His family left the segregated South and was raised in Chicago. He was educated at the Art Institute of Chicago and was employed by the Works Project Administration in the late 1930s. As an easel painter, his role was to depict the lives of African Americans in Chicago. In 1940, he founded the Southside Art Center in Chicago along with other African American artists, including Margaret Burroughs, Archibald Motley, and Charles White, and among other talented artists. Around the 1940s, Corder was introduced to the medium of printmaking. Corder being well known for his paintings, he began to use different forms of printmaking, including woodcuts, etchings, lithography, and mezzotints. In 1946, he was recognized by Life magazine and moved in the 1950s to New York City. Corder was later awarded the Julius Rosenwald Foundation Fellowship twice in the years of 1944 and 1945, which allowed him to travel to study to fulfill his interest in African American cultures and figures in the Georgia Sea Islands, Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti. Corder's works have been acquired by the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, Art Institute of Chicago, Studio Museum in Harlem, Howard University Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., Kankakee Gallery, Brooklyn Museum, and the Whitney Museum of American Art, and many more. By comparison, the work that I'm displaying in this presentation are very different from his elegant depictions of African American women. I first discovered Corder's Japanese woodblock series titled L'Abattoir by visiting in 2015 and observing the exhibition titled America is Hard to See at the Whitney Museum, which is located in New York City. After my visit, I began to question and research the following. Who did Corder learn Japanese woodblock from? Were there any other African American printmakers who also created Japanese woodblock historically? The L'Abattoir series, Corder used the Makuhanga technique where in his work demonstrated both Western and Japanese printing techniques. Corder created this series as part of an observation of a trip that he took to Haiti, where he observed a slaughterhouse of hanging carcasses and body parts when he traveled there. Founder and gallery owner of Kankakee Gallery, located in New York City, Corinne Jennings quotes that this series makes a powerful political statement against inhumanity, cruelty, and the cavalier of taking life. After his trip to Haiti, he constantly came back to this theme to produce other works and different printmaking techniques that included his signature style of carved and drawn beautiful abstractions. Through extensive research, I later discovered that Elder Corder collaborated with Creative Prints member and Japanese printmaker Junichiro Tsukino to produce several woodblock prints around the 1950s. The creative print movement emerged during the early 20th century by one of the leaders of this movement, Koshiro Onchi. The purpose of this movement was to empower artists to be in full control of the entire process, which included carving, printing, and allowing the medium to be a vehicle of self-expression and not just for commercial purposes. The breaking free of the barriers of traditional themes of ukiyo-e allowed the woodblock artists to allow space to create without social or societal conformities. Onchi, who was also Tsukino's teacher, became one of the pioneering Japanese artists who continued to make work during the World War times. He was able to provide supplies to other printmakers and organize monthly meetings to encourage and motivate other artists to continue to practice woodblock. Onchi is credited as one of the first artists to create abstract prints in which he used as a response to living through war times when he worked for the government to depict family life in China. During and after this time period, he would design books, write poetry, and essays that guided other artists to freely express themselves through the medium of woodblock. This same freedom to express oneself is the main reason why I choose the technique of woodblock to show my perspective of the world and how it emotionally influences the work I create. In 2019, I had the opportunity to visit Harvard Art Museum's exhibition titled Japan on Paper that featured works of art by the Creative Prints artist. During my visit, I was able to view works by Tsukino in the Art Study Center. I was immediately attracted to the Makuhanga prints that he had made of his children. Later in my research, I discovered that two of his children were also artists. As an arts educator, I totally admire Tsukino's passion for traveling the world to educate and celebrate Makuhanga. Tsukino began making woodblocks as a young child. He exhibited worldwide and taught at Pratt Institute and Oregon State University between the years of 1958 through 63 through funding by the Japan-America Society. Tsukino's range of subject matter, which includes portraits, theater scenes, landscapes, abstract designs, and depictions of his own family, makes him one of the most influential printmakers of the 20th century. As part of my research as a printmaker, I constantly search for groups of people who have contributed to society who remain invisible in history to inspire me. One of these groups of people would be the contributions of the Women's Print Association that was formed between the 1950s and 1960s. The purpose of this group was to provide a way to exhibit their work, provide support for one another, and promote female Japanese printmakers internationally, similar to recognition of the creative print artists. Together, 9 women formed the group, including founders Rika Iwami and Chizuko Yoshida, who mostly created Japanese woodblocks, and other forms of printmaking such as lithography and etching. In the later years, the group eventually reached up to 25 members. Some of the women in the group also experimented with pushing the boundaries of printmaking. I would like to bring the focus briefly to the practice and career of Rika Iwami. Iwami was born in Tokyo in 1927 and began her artistic journey of studying doll making and oil painting. She studied printmaking and exhibited with Tsukino along with other creative print artists. Iwami became greatly influenced by their work. She is considered to be one of the first Japanese women printmakers to achieve worldwide recognition, just as the other male printmakers. Chizuko Yoshida was born in 1924 in Yokohama. She was greatly inspired by music and dance. She also studied watercolor and oil painting. Through her marriage to the well-known printmaker Hodaka Yoshida, she also was motivated to study printmaking. Yoshida had the opportunity to travel internationally that inspired the work she created. She has been considered to be one of the most innovative printmakers because she is constantly experimenting with various art styles, techniques, and ideas and art movements. Yoshida's ranges from abstraction to realism that can be seen in her butterfly prints. Through this research, an exhibition titled Joryu Hanga Koikai, 1956 to 1965, Japan's women printmakers, curated by Jini Kinmotsu, and Breaking Barriers, Japanese women print artists, 1950 to 2000, curated by Mary Beth Graybill, now provides a great foundation to learn more about the history of Japanese female printmakers who made Makuhanga prints. In the area of printmaking, not only are print societies or collectives important to network and to exchange or share work with like-minded people, the space in which a printmaker creates is just as important. Printmakers choose to work solely by themselves or work in communal studios. The Printmaking Workshop, now the Robert Blackburn Print Shop, which was founded by the expert Caribbean descent printmaker Robert Blackburn. There is a connection to the workshop because Elder Corder worked at the workshop where he had the opportunity to experiment with making prints in the late 1960s, not too long after he created the series, L'Abattoir series. The Printmaking Workshop was established in 1971 in New York City. From its founding and still today, Blackburn created the foundation to create a safe space to exchange, experiment, and share resources with the aim to create an inclusive space where all artists from different cultures could learn from each other. Some of the artists that he collaborated with include Elder Corder, Emma Amos, Elizabeth Catlett, and amongst others. Blackburn's range of working in various printmaking techniques, including woodblock, lithography, monotype, and intaglio, allowed him to make an influence and collaborate with many artists that he worked with in his studio. He was truly committed to teaching and taught at the New School for Social Research, Cooper Union, Pratt Institute, and Columbia University. In conclusion, there is importance in the creation of safe spaces to bring printmakers together internationally. I do feel that Makahanga can do just that, for the reason why the International Makahanga Conference was established to cultivate global Makahanga connections. In my own artistic practice, I feel that the purpose of why I create art is to bring emphasis to the beauty in life of African American people, as well as a way to address the social political injustices that exist in our society today. In the future, I plan on continuing to promote Makahanga by providing lectures, establishing my own print shop, and educating people about the importance of preserving the technique of Makahanga. The work of promoting Makahanga is important for international printmakers, I believe, is because it's important to become more active of how we each share our own work that can be used to demonstrate the diversity and inclusiveness of the medium by style, expressiveness, inspiration, and subject that can connect our passion to unify us together as an international Makahanga community. I would like to dedicate this presentation to Keiko Kododa, April Valmer, Kazuo Yuasa, and Takuji Hamanaka, who all have contributed to my development as a Makahanga printmaker. Thank you again for listening.